Technology is an ever-changing thing. It's always moving forward and advancing. There's so many problems both in society and in the environment that technology is helping to fix. One of the major problems for society is in fact the environment. The environment is something that needs to be maintained. The people of the past never really realized that. So our world is now having to move forward past our reliances of the past and work to preserve the environment that we do have left. Technology is helping with that. We have renewable energy, recycling, and many other technological advancements that are helping us. All around the world, people are working together just to save our planet.
One grand challenge of engineering is making solar power economic and efficient. Right now, solar power is currently about 10 to 20% efficient and is probably about 1% of the overall energy used on the power grid compared to fossil fuels. Solar energy is probably one of the best outlets in the future that we could explore. The sun produces more energy than we could ever think possible, or anything. The biggest part of solar is making it more efficient and more economic. Currently, it is not the most efficient, it's about 10 to 20%. However, theoretically, we can get up to 31% efficiency and maybe even 40%. However, to get these efficiencies, it requires very pure minerals to capture the sunlight. So these pure minerals and materials are very expensive to get pure, because if they're not pure, then it blocks the electric charge flow. And also another challenge is finding materials that can absorb energy but are also very thin. However, the thin materials are not going to absorb as much sunlight. So one proposed option, thin materials are not going to absorb as much sunlight. So one proposed option is to use nanocylinders. And what those are is, what that would do is it's thick in a certain in one dimension, so that it absorbs energy or absorbs more sunlight, and thin in another dimension, so that the charge can travel fast past it into the next one. And another challenge is storage. There's a lot of different ways that we've kind of proposed to store it, because the sun doesn't always shine in one place, and to have it readily available at all times was a challenge. One of the proposed things is to actually kind of mimic plants and how they photosynthesize and keep their energy in chemical bonds. Since my time in Spain, there are many things that have changed about my perspectives comparing the U.S. and the rest of the world. First and foremost is the size of the U.S. Being in Spain puts into perspective just how large the U.S. is in size of landmass. You could travel far across Spain to the other side and probably only get like a fourth of the way of the U.S. It's much easier to travel in Spain to much larger cities using transportation like trains or buses and be into another big city in only a couple of hours, or even to another country, since the EU borders are unprotected and all of those countries are very small in close proximity. However, in the US, you could only probably get to maybe another state or two doing the same thing. Makes you think, is it the same? Is it just as feasible to take a train across the US? Or is the US just too large and are cars better? Or are buses better? Another interesting perspective that has changed since traveling Spain is their public recycling systems. Public recycling systems exist in the US, especially in certain cities like San Francisco and Portland, Oregon, where it's very widespread and integrated into the community. However, on a normal basis and what I've experienced in my lifetime, it is not as prevalent. They have trash cans labeled as recycling in many places now. However, in Spain, they have them, it's seemingly a uniform system in the streets, and has like a pneumatic tube kind of system going where it takes it without having to be picked up on a daily basis, although that exists also. At our time in Spain, we also learned that they are trying to phase out all waste into a landfill that can be recycled in a mere about 5 years. And it makes you wonder if the U.S. can do the same. Already, we have many states that kind of are in that, and really that almost kind of equals up to their country as far as size goes. But the thought that the U.S. could get that whole thing is it whole 100% goal is also an interesting thought. An interesting thing I noticed in Spain also was the cars, and it really lived up to my expectations of what I expected European streets to look like. The cars were much smaller. I know in Europe that there's not as much driving, and it's much more expensive to own a car and gas. However, seeing these cars, you rarely saw any trucks, and as soon as I got back to the U.S., it was very noticeable how many trucks and just like oversized and unnecessary sized trucks. And it makes you just realize how much gasoline is excess use just to have these cars, where a small economically um, car is going to be much more sustainable.
There are many things people just don't think about while they're sitting at home. It's not until you get out into the world and see the different people and societies that are out there that your viewpoints actually might begin to change. The world is large and there's many experiences to have, so it's best to get up off the couch and go see how the world changes you.